So, yeah, I'm going to talk about LocalGov Drupal Microsites. Caveat, I didn't make this talk. This person did, you might know, and he gave it recently at DrupalCon Barcelona. So apologies. If it goes well, you can give me good feedback. If it goes badly, fin@opencode.uk. I'm going to do it a bit in conjunction with Maria. I've corralled her in because Maria was part of the team that built Microsites. You'll be pleased to hear some technical stuff. She's better off sort of talking about that. And I'm also, just for simplicity and speed, I'm going to switch to YouTube and get Finn to do the demo bit on video, okay? It's better off. It will be quicker, I think, and then we'll have hopefully more time for questions. So I'm the community lead for LocalGov Drupal. I do other stuff. I've been involved in the project since the beginning. And Maria, I've put you down as accessibility lead. Does that sound accurate? Yeah, good. So I'm going to cover a bit of context and background on LocalGov Drupal, and then look at the sort of proposition for microsites. And then I'll probably get Maria to talk about the sort of Drupal architecture, key contrib modules, live demo in action. And there's also some features coming down the line, which I think are also coming down the line in sort of Starshot as well, as I gather. And then I'll touch on the sort of business model of LocalGov Drupal and some takeaways. So some background. So LocalGov Drupal has been around since 2020, and it's a collaboration between local authorities in the UK and Ireland, this should say, and it's been going since 2020. It's been seed funded essentially from the UK government, MHCLG as it was known then it became DLUC, now it's back to MHCLG, so Minister for Housing, Communities and Local Government. And it was funded through what's now no longer the Local Digital Fund, which was running for a few years, and they're sort of mothballing it at the moment, which is a shame. Or I'm not going to say what I was going to say. And it was sort of inspired by the Local Digital Declaration, which essentially is an agreement that councils, local authorities can voluntarily sign up to, and it sort of informs the way that they build their digital infrastructure. A lot of it's built around user needs, open source, good sort of sensible principles. And if I understand correctly, if you'd signed up to the Local Digital Declaration, you could apply for this funding, essentially. And I'll come on to the sort of story of that. Now, we're about 51 councils using LocalGov Drupal in some form. That might be just using microsites, it might be using the LocalGov Drupal distribution. And lots more on the way. So LocalGov Drupal lives on drupal.org/project/localgov, but most of the work is happening in GitHub at the moment. There's a few, as I understand it, a few technical issues around why that's happening. It's just easier, but the plan is to migrate everything over. There are, oh my God, a lot of repositories. I don't even know how many now. Over 50, I think. So it's quite a lot. There's the sort of core distribution, and then there's lots of these little add-on modules and stuff. So it's quite a big amount of infrastructure. The plan is to move everything over onto Drupal.org. So it started off in 2020 with two councils. Well, one council, Brighton and Hove. There was a team there. They did a digital transformation project. They worked with an agency called ClearLeft, who did a lot of user research and informed a lot of the design patterns that were also sort of taken from gov.uk's designs. And so they did this work. They released this thing. It was great. And then a lot of that team were contractors, so they then, a couple of them went off to work at Croydon. And it was Groundhog Day, and they were like, oh right, we're doing the same thing we've just done. Why? So, obviously people, relationships, they were still in touch with people at Brighton. They said, could you just like give us that code? That'd be great. And a lot of the user research and design, I think they had Figma designs, that kind of thing. So they entered into a sort of informal code sharing agreement. Croydon then, from what I understand, saved about 100K and spun up their website in super quick time and used a lot of what Brighton did, tweaked it a bit, and then they entered into a bit of a informal ad hoc sort of arrangement. Croydon would do a bit of stuff, Brighton would do a bit of stuff. This got Will Callahan, who's the LocalGov Drupal product lead, thinking. He said, this is crazy, like there's an idea here, like literally every council is kind of doing the same thing in some form or other. Why is everyone doing this bespoke? So that's where the sort of idea for the funding pot came from. So got the funding, and then a few other councils were early adopters. So we've got Lambeth, Bracknell Forest, Waltham Forest, Westminster, and so they came and launched in 2021, which was sort of after probably the discovery and alpha phases. So that ended up with 6 councils and 6 sites. 2022, again, a bit more growth, a few more councils coming on board. Do we have any non-UK ones? I thought we might have then, maybe not. And by last year, we saw a big jump. We saw a big jump for 2 reasons. One, there's a bit of momentum and more councils are coming on board, but the other is the microsites platform came on board. So a lot of the images here that you'll see are not just the corporate website of a council, but they're the sort of satellite sites around, so it's just sort of proliferated. So something I should have said at the beginning, LocalGov Drupal's there to be a platform for local government and their sort of corporate websites, essentially. So if you go to the gov.uk of your local council, it could be, I'd say should be, powered by LocalGov Drupal. So by the end of last year, we're up to about 51. And just looking at like the wider context, the lovely Colin Stenning, who used to work at Bracknell Forest, in his spare time, he likes to look at what CMS's councils are using, and so he's got this Airtable, and you can find that at Digital Health Check. And if you look at it from 2019, you can see that Jadu is a proprietary system, very big player in the space, sort of out in front, Drupal just behind, different versions of Drupal. So at this point, I think quite a lot on Drupal 7. And if we jump forward to this year, that's massively changed. So Drupal's sort of out in front, and Jadu, I think if we switch back, a bit of growth. Nope, Jadu's sort of actually static. So the big change has been in Drupal. And that change has mostly been because of LocalGov Drupal. Not solely, and a lot of it has been the sort of change from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8 and a lot of adoption into a much better version of Drupal. So a different version of that is just looking at a pie. So you can see that Drupal's sort of just under a quarter at the moment, and there's a lot more scope for growth. Can't remember exactly the number of councils, but if you include Ireland, like we're at, a few hundred here we're talking about. So there's quite a lot of scope for growth. And like if we look at like who we've been talking to in the last year or so, like we've got a big group of councils, but these things move slowly. They're on contracts. These things take time, 18 months, 2-year lead times. But it is gradually changing. So that was the context of LocalGov Drupal, the project. So that's where it started. It was a distribution, LocalGov Drupal distribution, aimed at councils for their corporate websites. And that sort of solved a massive key challenge for a lot of councils, saved a lot of money. I think costs is obviously one driver. The other is improving outcomes as well. So that's going on, and that's sort of into a sort of business as usual. And a lot of councils were then saying, we've got this other problem. We've got all these other sites. What are we going to do with all these other sites? Sort of labeled as microsites, satellite sites, that kind of thing. So all of these sort of extraneous ones around their corporate sites. They had a lot, maybe too many, lots of small, lots on different platforms, commissioned by different services without any sort of core cohesive coordination or sort of technical governance. Some had a lot. And yeah, as I said, like on lots of different platforms. This, from a technical point of view, was a big issue to manage, maintain. You had the issue of like people leaving, and then like in some cases we heard like councils just not even be able to log in, just basically being locked out of their platforms. And the same for suppliers as well. Suppliers like dying off and then just like being left with this sort of redundant software that wasn't very good, not very accessible. And so this was becoming a real issue for councils. And the other thing that was really apparent, like in terms of, again, about outcomes, was like just the user experience wasn't great. It was very mixed. Accessibility was poor. There was a lot of like issues with compliance, analytics, like GDPR not being followed, basically because best practice wasn't enforced. And the other thing was there was just a lot of inconsistent branding and people were going rogue through good intentions, but with a lack of consistency. There's various, in a council setting, there's various use cases. Often councils in different services will need to provide almost like a bespoke look that needs to sit outside of the sort of corporate branding. Fostering's like a really common use case. You know, there's a sort of aspect of, you know, needing to really present nice, visual, appealing, attractive thing, very clear user stories. Libraries, again, quite different, almost like a slightly external in terms of like how us as citizens interact. You don't necessarily see the library as necessarily part of your council. You kind of just want to access and get the information from the council, from the library. But then also other types of use cases like local offer, special educational needs. A lot of those are sort of mandated. We're seeing more in like design codes or sort of in planning more recently. And then some that are much more sort of brochure-y, festivals, events, Christmas markets, that kind of thing. So there's like quite a lot of different use cases. And I guess the point here is like just talking to an audience maybe not interested in the sort of council or local authority setting is that these use cases are applicable in lots of different sectors. So it might be in academia and universities, it might be just corporations that have lots of different sites. So I guess one of the reasons for talking about it here is like we've got this thing, it was designed for one audience, one sector, but the sort of use case and applicability is across lots of others. So from the services or department's point of view, they wanted to have ownership of their site. So they wanted to be able to log in and sort of manage their content, all that kind of stuff. They wanted it to be a lot more image-led, a lot more sort of attractive. A lot of council sites are, you know, the point is someone coming for specific information and they just want to find that information and leave. And it's slightly different in a lot of these cases. They wanted to have a lot more flexibility over their layout, and they also wanted to be able to manage their content properly. And I guess the issue around content management is just users, permissions, roles. Like if you've got someone in a service and they just need to access a tiny portion of a site, you know, you've got a custom, you know, control, all that kind of thing. So giving them ownership over a smaller site, you know, good from that point of view. From a council's point of view, and here I would say like comms team or the content team, whoever's like managing that stuff, they want to make sure it's easy, cost effective, but in general principles like consistency, cost effective in terms of like security updates and management, making sure everything's accessible, having analytics managed across cookie consent GDPR, and also either having consistent branding or the flexibility to change it as well and move outside of that. So part of the project, which Maria was involved with, so you might want to jump in, I don't know, was to come up with a clear proposition, you know, that someone in a council could go through with a service and go, right, you've got this need that you've identified. Let's work out what the best solution is in terms of where this will live. Will it be just a page on the site? Would it be a sub-site, which I'm not going to go into, but is a feature of LocalGov Drupal? Would it be a separate microsite using the microsite distribution? Or would it be just completely isolated and over here, just totally separate? It might be, you know, if you think about maybe a leisure centre with quite complex booking, e-commerce needs, all that kind of thing, maybe there's a reason for having it totally separate. So this proposition was developed and had, you know, it's a series of questions you go through and work through with the service, and you know, at the end of it, you come up with whether it should be a microsite, sub-site, page, separate site. So which users are we designing it for? What's the user research? Has there been user research? What user needs have been identified? How are we going to measure the success? What KPIs are in place? What's the content and information architecture that we need? What constraints or otherwise are there around identity? And then how are we going to manage the content, who needs access to it, and at what levels? And then final question, okay, what's the right tool to use? So microsites lives on Drupal.org as well. There's a page there, so that's /project/localgov_microsites. And then on the right-hand side, that's just again the picture of the GitHub project. So that's where, you know, all of the actual development is going on at the moment. Again, plan is to migrate. And I think the main blocker at the moment is just Drupal.org gradually moving over to GitLab for their issue queues. And so we're sort of waiting for that, basically. Once we're able to, we can migrate off GitHub and be a lot more integrated. So this is an example of from Sheffield City Council, who recently released 10, I think, microsites, all built in-house, mostly built in-house. On the right-hand side is the corporate site, which is on LocalGov Drupal. So they built last year, I think, they released last year. And then the four on the left-hand side are 4 examples of microsites that they've recently built. So you can see there's a level of consistency, and there's also quite a wide range of different applicability here. So a classic one is the sort of the city plan, the council plan, which I think a lot of councils have to publish. You've got an example of a fostering service. We've got advertising and sponsorship, so revenue generating for the council. And then you've got the special educational needs on the top right. And there are, again, with a lot of these, there's quite a lot of consistent patterns, but a lot of flexibility at the same time, and, you know, out of the box sort of cookie compliant modules. So all of that sort of stuff sort of baked in. And I think it's more, I'm going to skip through this because I think the demo will probably go into a little bit more interesting detail. This is a slightly different one, so advertising and sponsorship. And again, you can see like there's a consistent Sheffield brand, but there is also a bit of flexibility and niceness around some design elements. And some councils have really gone to town on the sort of design and branding, because essentially the technical stuff's been, most of it's out of the box, so they can save money there and put it into making things more attractive. Okay. Maria, do you want to jump up and... Yeah. I don't have to pretend I know what I'm talking about.
Give me your mic.
I can give you this mic, and then you can...
Do we know it works?
We know it works, Alistair? Aaron, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know why.
This one work?
Yeah.
It really does. It doesn't. It doesn't have a clip, so... Okay.
No, I'll tab for you.
Okay, so just a little bit of technical about setting up a microsite, but then we'll go into the demo and hopefully it'll make more sense. So I'm not sure if it was clear, just to say it again. LocalGov Drupal, the core product is a distribution. So you set up one instance, Drupal instance, for your corporate site, and then there is one single code base that can power all the rest of, well, all of these microsites. So it's got a single code base and a single database. It's run off groups. We'll get into that maybe in a bit. So yeah, you've got the control site, which is your Drupal site, which is where you manage your microsites. We've got a user role, sorry, the controller who can go in there and set up microsites and create users, and then assign those users to separate instances of the microsites. So then you might have 3 microsites running off that, and within you log into a different domain, so you can have a completely different domain for each one. You log into that one, and there you can manage the styles of that site. So there's a bit of custom pointy-clicky things you can do to theme your site. And you can also manage content. So there is a complete split between content between each of the sites and users and such like. Make sense? Some kind of sense? Okay. So managing styles, we've got the microsite admin who can log in and they can do some style changes. So these are some user stories. Finn will actually do them in the demo, but you might want to log in, update the styles to change the header colors, some body fonts, line spacing. There's quite a lot that you can do through the UI. Whereas the content editor would want to log in, it's not allowed near the styles because we don't want them doing that. But they can edit and update content, do some layout stuff, and fix your accessibility, all of that kind of thing. And yeah, so let's go into the demo.
What can go wrong?
Well, it's not live, so hopefully not too much.
Yeah, Finn, don't mess this up. Okay. Okie doke. How do I get sound through?
I could pretend to be Finn, if you like.
There's a knob on here, I'm going to turn it.
Okay.
Oh, it doesn't actually. It should actually change something.
I could maybe do a voiceover.
Yeah.
I loaded the laptop speakers.
Well, we can do a voiceover. So should we just voice over it?
Yeah, it's
Maria can voice over.
This should be working, but like it's not.
All right.
It's just a day of technology problem.
We could switch on the captions.
Yeah, I'll switch on captions.
Okay.
Hang on. Oh yeah,
Down
bottom.
Yeah.
All right. And Maria's going to talk as
No.
well.
I won't make you listen and read.
Okay, we're just going to watch.
Yeah.
Do you want sound or shall I just mute it and we'll just go with captions?
Maybe play it anyway.
Okay.
So the control site. I'm on the control site here. I'm using DDev locally to manage 5 or 6 different sites, all pointing at the same site. I'm going to log in as the controller user. When we log in here as a controller user, we can see our microsites listed. We could add a new microsite. I won't do that just yet. And we could also manage the people, the user accounts on the site. And importantly, assign users to microsites. So this is all governed by group module in Drupal. Domain access will come in when we're looking at the domains. So essentially we're assigning users to groups and giving each user particular roles on that group. So we see we've got an admin one assigned as an admin role to this microsite. So let's flip over to that actual microsite, which is on LocalGov micro1.ddev.site. And we can see we have a fictional University of Scarfolk, an imaginary town in England somewhere, with a bunch of promotional content, images, text, footer details, and a couple of pages on the menu. I just kind of whipped these up quite quickly, so forgive me for the design. I didn't have any web design input on it, and yeah, I've never been great at visual design. So if we log in now as the admin one, so this is an admin user on the microsite, we have a dashboard showing our users and content. We can manage media items, content items, menus. We can manage and imagine members. So we could add more members here as the admin of this site. We could invite people, send them an email, and have them come and register for an account. They will get access. Or you can add existing members. But then what we're going to look at over here, the site settings, site name, standard kind of Drupal site settings, global sort of slogan, front page, that sort of stuff. And the site design. And it's the site design that we're just going to have a quick look at now. Because if we have a look here, the header's a little bit purple, and that doesn't really go with the logo. So again, one of the concepts here is that we don't want to have to involve any front-end developers. And I was really inspired by some of the stuff I've just seen on the Starshot initiative, which hopefully we can bring here soon. Whoa, that way. So here, let me just have a look at my notes to see what I was going to do. That's my notes, that's my script. So we want to change some colors here, like I mentioned. So we're going to go to the global styles. We've got a primary color here, which is correct. This one, actually, we just want to be white. The primary contrast color is a bit blue. If we just go down to the header, that's where the purple is defined. Let's make that the same blue as the logo. So if we go back to the site now, we can see it's immediately changed. So all the parameters that we're setting in these forms are turned into CSS variables and inherited by the theme and immediately available. A couple of other things we can do. I'm not going to go through everything because there's an awful lot. Maybe change the heading font to Libra Baskerville, something a bit more serifed, and change the body font to IBM Plex Sans. Maybe increase the base font size. Line height, it always looks a bit better if it's a bit more spaced. Let's just save that and then go back and hopefully we'll see a flipping of, yeah, so we've got slightly bigger fonts, a serifed heading font, and a sans body. So as an admin, hopefully I've got some design skills or some guidance from my designers, but I can go and essentially change a lot of the colors, the fonts, the layout, the parameters that define the look and feel of the site. Let's now go and have a look at the same logging in as an editor. So I just flipped over to the browser where I'm logged into the same site as an editor, and if I go and edit this, if I go to Microsites administration first, I see I've got many fewer options. I can manage content and media and menus, but I can't manage any of the site settings for obvious reasons. So let's have a quick look at the editing experience here. If we go to the new faculty page, we can see we've got a new faculty here. We click on edit, then we should see some of the layout paragraphs functionality. I won't go into too much detail, but layout paragraphs essentially is using some of the layout builder functionality, but within paragraphs. So we're restricting it to a particular paragraph field. This proved really popular with our content designers. And I'll come back to this a bit later, but you can add a new section, 2-column, 3-column, add items, paragraph items into your section. And we've got a few that have been predefined, text, image, etc. Let's just grab a bit of text for the sake of argument. Let's pop an image in this side. That's a link. So maybe I should wear my glasses. Let's just upload one of these images. Alt text is obviously important. Cropping is becoming increasingly important as you get different images of different sizes, so just making sure that there is default cropping included, etc. I won't go through all of them. But essentially, the content editor should have all the tools that they need to create pages with reasonable layouts and following the designs that have been defined. Right, let's move on. Let's go and have a look at a couple of other use cases of the site. So, in fact, one thing I didn't mention back on the Microsites administration is that on site settings we have a content types form which allows us to enable and disable different submodules that define different content types. We have news, blogs, events, directories, and a web form content types. It always has the page enabled, the page with the page layout. That's kind of like just the baseline, and then these other things are optional. So you can imagine you might just want an event site. Speaking of which, here's an example of an event site. And again, I won't dwell too long. It's relatively simple, quite basic, quite straightforward. I was then very inspired to see what Dries was showing on the events recipe, something we're definitely looking at coming on to. But there's that need, right? We need an event site. We just need a simple site with events. We want to be able to filter by certain things, neighborhoods, prices, categories. Again, this is geared at local government, so neighborhoods is quite standard and important. But then a nice little feature is the event range. So if you want to see stuff that's this week, it just quickly filters out the dates based on what the day is today, or is there anything going on today? Again, that's something that's very popular with council users and citizens. If we just go drill into one of these, we've also got a little add to calendar thing, although I liked the way the Dries was showing it, the little icons next to here. So yeah, that's relatively simple functionality, yet very useful for any stakeholders who need an event site. Let's have a look at another one. This is the third one. It's a directory site. Again, a sort of image-led front page. This time we've got a directory. And this comes out of LocalGov directories, developed for the main LocalGov distribution, but then brought into the microsites distribution. And it's actually one of the more popular things that councils need to use. Well, one of the most often used cases for microsites is we need a separate directory for various reasons. This has location data plus facets, which can be configured on a per directory basis. So this might be actually useful to have a quick look at. Less microsite specific, but quite LocalGov Drupal specific. You may be familiar with the fact that taxonomies, when you create new taxonomies, they become config, and so if you've got content editors creating taxonomies and terms as content, that can be problematic for configuration deployment. So instead of that in LocalGov Drupal, directory facets have been created as a separate entity type that is completely excluded from config and treated as content. This means that a site owner, as an admin in this case, can go and create new types of facets. Let's just say, for example, we're going to create a new facets type, which is size, and then go and add individual, items into that, large, small, etc. Again, a small but simple thing, yet incredibly powerful, because content designers want to be able to create their own directories, create their own vocabularies, create their own types of things to filter by types of things to filter by. Yeah.
Thank you, Finn. There's a little bit more, but obviously this is now live, so if you want to watch the rest of that video, you'll be able to see a bit more of the demo. I'm just conscious of time, and just put this back on. What side am I going? There. So there's a couple of things that Finn also touched on. He does a demo of this, so you can have a look at this in practice. But there's two modules that are coming down the pipe. One is on Drupal.org, so Mercury Editor, which is a sort of add-on to layout paragraphs, I think, and essentially means that you can do like what you see is what you get editorial of the front. You're just logged in as an admin or an editor, and you're able to edit a page, change the text, change an image, change the cropping of an image, but you're not going into the back end, so you can kind of see the edits that you're doing as you're doing it in real time. So that's really exciting. Obviously, content editors love that kind of thing. And related is Live Preview, which does the same thing, but does it for your branding, so your design, your font styles, your line heights, colors, etc. So again, this appears on the right-hand side as a little pop-out, and you're able to just change that and see what those changes will have, what effect they'll have. So from a designer's point of view, that's really nice as well. Key modules. Maria, you're probably best just touching on these. And Finn mentioned these in the session, in the demo.
Yeah, so it's mostly built on group and group sites. I think got a big rewrite recently. The domain module to manage the domains, surprisingly. And yeah, we make big use of layout paragraphs as well. There's, we've been, EECS particularly has been contributing a lot back into the group project, but Christian, I think it's on the next slide, has been really helpful, helping us get group sites up to readiness for the stable launch. We're stable now, aren't we?
Yep.
Of LocalGov Microsites.
Okay. I'm going to do like 2 minutes on business model. So the business model of LocalGov Drupal is, so it was previously, as I said, it was government funded, so it was basically running as a funded project for 3 years, 4 years, 3 years. And at the end of 2023, we needed to come up with a business plan, business model. So Open Digital Cooperative was set up as a company and as a cooperative, so co-owned by supplier subscribers and council subscribers. So shout out to Will. Hello, Will. He's Zucha. He's one of our lovely subscribers, and also Duncan McMahalian. Is anyone else in the room that I haven't mentioned? I don't want to exclude anyone. Agile Collective, sorry. And so that's growing. So that's great. So suppliers are sort of paying a subscription fee annually, and councils are paying. So it's on a sliding scale, and that's growing. And our idea is, more councils come on, the more subscribers we have, the more we're able to develop as a core team. And this is a sort of, a bit of an image of what that looks like. Subscription fees are collected by Open Digital Co-op. That funds a core team of product lead, tech lead, developers, comms lead, community lead at the moment. That's all on a contract basis. There's a desire and a need to get to a permanent sort of fully staffed team. And the focus then is on onboarding of new councils, support to councils, both from a technical point of view, but also content, accessibility, and then doing all of the sort of core stuff that you'd expect from a product team. So security, bug fixes, new releases, new features. And we do a lot of community events and meetings. So we've got a content group for content designers, accessibility group for people interested in accessibility, which is a bit of a crossover. We've got tech drop-ins, tech governance. We do regular community monthly meetups as well. So key takeaways, in Finn's opinion, LocalGov Drupal can be applicable to lots of other sectors, not just councils. A Drupal-based microsite system can definitely save time and money if you're looking at managing lots of this sort of thing. Much better for security. You can also reduce the number of microsites, reduce duplication, and definitely reduce technical debt. And we think that in this model, self-funding open source ecosystem is possible. That we're proving it so far. And I guess the other thing to note is that public sector investment that stipulates open source does work. There are examples in other countries where it is working and it's sort of mandated. We don't have that in this country yet. We should. But if we do, it definitely is possible and it definitely works. And I think we've also proven that bringing together lots of councils who are traditionally can be quite siloed organizations, bringing them together builds a sense of positivity, better outcomes, but also from people working in those councils, meeting people from the same discipline in other councils and sharing experience and that kind of thing and building solidarity. Generally people feel much better and well in their jobs, which is very nice. We've got 3 minutes. Nice. Questions?
This question to yourselves, but also maybe Billy as well. Why you said it could be useful for other use cases, not just councils.
Yeah.
What would come out of your mind as reasons why this wouldn't be suitable for the university as departmental kind of model?
Well, I'm not in it. Yeah.
Why doesn't Billy answer that?
Yeah, Billy might be able to answer that. Right, yeah.
I really think it's impressive, but the reason why, and I suppose this one is more than half the model, we always had that question that people want to do that little bit extra, and they want to add in their own modules and bring on a lot of that functionality. So we can fit that model exactly.
So the monolithic code base would be an issue when you want to customize that code base for specific microsites.
Yeah, and I think I suppose in sheer scale, I mean, we're looking at easily in the next 5
We spoke to, when we were researching it, we spoke to Oxford University and the system that they run, or they ran, the Drupal, it's still on Drupal 7, I think, and took a lot from them, like about what works and what didn't work. But yeah, that's it. We haven't tested this up to that scale yet, and I think it definitely, you know, but I am really interested in, I think we need to talk to you about what you've learned and what we can bring back into this system.
Yeah.
That's it.
Nice one. Yeah. Cool. Nice one.
I think Aaron had a question as
Aaron,
well.
and then there was one at the back as well. So we'll try and, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there's any plans to start convert the distribution to recipes, because that's the sort of hot topic at the moment, conversation.
I think, yes. I mean, in short, yes, and it's being evaluated, I think is the best way to put it. Yeah, yeah. Both for LocalGov Drupal and microsites. Yeah, because obviously there's... Yeah, yeah. So there's some work being done by Lee at TPX Impact, sort of looking at how that might be possible. There's one at the back, and then...
Worked on platforms where we've actually 1,500 sites highly configurable. So if there's any learnings there that we can share, single code base, very complex issues.
Yeah, if we could grab contacts, we can reach out for a chat. I can put you in touch with Finn, and he would be super interested. Yeah, for sure. I'm not the right person to talk to, as you might have seen.
It's just very quickly to answer this, we're over here at that scale, but at the business school at the uni, we are on the web system, we're on our own separate Drupal installation, and for all of our research centres, we have
Yes.
sites.
Yes.
So that's lots of, we've got like 25, but they're all very small sites, so we don't really have that worry of scale. But that works very, very well. We're able to spin up sites in like a couple of hours.
Nice.
That's a very good use case. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's one feature as well that I think that Finn didn't show, which is, so there is that point and click through the UI to change the look and feel of it, but you can also upload, actually, or specify your own base theme. So you can shut down all of that thing and have everything just come up as your branding, or have a base set of branding, which is kind of cool, and maybe like the other use case than councils have, where they need things that look quite different. Sometimes you need lots of sites that look the same.
Well, there's one at the front, or one more at the front? Yeah? Yeah, sure.
Is there plans to expand this outside the UK for other local authorities?
Yeah, so I've been talking to an agency in the US who are sort of evaluating for, they don't call them councils, local government, I guess they'd probably call them, over there, and they're sort of looking at it as a sort of proposition. And we had a couple of Drupal agencies in Sweden also really interested, who sort of have clients in the public sector and kind of interested. Yeah, I think there is, for LocalGov Drupal, there's an interesting, like, probably applicability to a certain extent. And obviously every country, I think it's probably maybe 80-90%, you know, that's probably very similar. But just looking at a US example, I was like, okay, there's quite a few like key differences here in terms of how local governments sort of think about it. But yeah, that's a really interesting avenue, both from a like business model point of view and also from the product development point of view. How do you do it? Recipes might be a helpful answer on that.
Cool. Billy, I think I had a question. Since the whole Edinburgh source and I'll
It's going to be really technical with the names, so I'm just going to
I'll sit down.
I was just really going to ask, so whenever you're proposing a microsite, how does it know the domain to attach it to? Is there some sort of technical wizardry behind it?
So what Finn didn't show, sorry, because we obviously we're using microsites. What he didn't show was when he was logged in as the admin of the microsite, if you're logged into the controller site, you see the same, but there's an additional box where you specify the domain. And
So how does that work then? Do you have to use the DNS form here?
But it depends on your infrastructure. It just points it at the same site. You just specify the domain and the microsite and you just go in the controller.
Good?
Yeah. Good.
Thanks, folks.